How often would you be willing to spend up to 10,000 times more for a product than you need to? If you frequently purchase bottled water, then you may be making this choice with each and every purchase. Americans spend somewhere from 240 all the way up to 10,000 times more for bottled water than they would spend on tap water. In fact, for the cost of a single 12-ounce bottle of water, you could use, on average, around 450 gallons of tap water. 450 gallons of water. That's about 60 cubic feet and over 3,700 pounds. The title of this speech is Tap Water, Simply the Better Choice. My goal today is to show you how simple this choice actually is when we make the comparison with the plastic bottled alternative. So bottled water is more expensive than tap water. This much we all know from experience. But what I'm going to inform everyone about today extends far beyond the upfront cost of bottled water. If you've ever had a vehicle damaged and appraised, you probably know that sometimes they find hidden damage. Damage that extends far beyond that of the initial appraisal. Being expensive is a visible damage of water. But what really makes tap water the simple choice is what we find when we start to look at the hidden damages of bottled water. Plastic bottles have a negative impact on the environment, and limited natural resources are wasted in the production and transportation of plastic bottles of water. So right now you might be thinking, yes, but bottled water is healthier than tap water. Well, don't worry, because we're going to expose the truth behind that as well. The need to address bottled water consumption has literally never been more prevalent. This is because bottled water is, and has been on the rise for quite some time. In fact, just in the last decade or so, from 2001 to 2011, bottled water consumption in the United States has risen by 75%. This is reported by the Beverage Marketing Corporation, or BMC. So what does that mean? Well, for starters, it means that lots of plastic water bottles end up in landfills or in the ocean. Most bottled water does come in a recyclable plastic container. The issue is that most of these bottles are never recycled. In fact, 70% of plastic water bottles don't get recycled. In 2005, the NRDC reported that there were 2 million tons of plastic water bottles sitting in landfills. The material that is used in these bottles takes over 1,000 years to biodegrade, and if they're incinerated, they produce a toxic fuel that's also bad for the environment. So let's look into some more less obvious hidden damage. Did you know that the plastic used in the most common type of water bottle is derived from crude oil? According to the Earth Policy Institute, in order to supply the U.S. alone with plastic water bottles, it requires over 17 million barrels of crude oil each year. To put this in perspective, that's enough oil to fuel 1 million vehicles for that entire year. So we've established a few things. We started with the visible damage. Bottled water is more expensive to the consumer. Then we took things a step further, and we found some hidden damage. Plastic water bottles are hurting the environment. When we looked even further, we came to find that these bottles waste limited natural resources. So at this point, if you're a bottled water consumer, you might be thinking, I see the damage, but I want to drink healthy water. To get an idea of how people feel about how healthy bottled water really is, I conducted a survey of 16 coworkers. Over 83% believed that bottled water was healthier than tap water. This is a common misconception, and it originates from clever marketing by the bottled water industry. Bottled water isn't necessarily any safer or healthier at all than tap water. In fact, the NRDC, which is the Natural Resources Defense Council, conducted a 4-year study of the bottled water industry. They found that about 25% of bottled water was actually just tap water in a bottle, sometimes further processed, sometimes not. When it comes to bottled water, there are some regulatory gaps. Bottled water regulation actually falls into the hands of the FDA, which is the Food and Drug Administration, while tap water is regulated by the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. In their 4-year study, the NRDC reported that 60 to 70% of bottled water in the United States was exempt from the FDA regulations. This is because if water is bottled and sold from within the same state, the FDA claims that that water does not fall under their regulations. Nearly 40 states say that they do regulate these types of waters, but they may or may not have limited resources to police these policies. According to the NRDC, even when the FDA regulations were in place, they are in many ways weaker than the regulations that fall into municipals regulated by the EPA. So generally speaking, just because water is bottled does not make it any cleaner or healthier than tap water. Most bottled water also doesn't contain fluoride, which is in tap water, and provides many oral health benefits. To wrap things up, we took a brief look into the bottled water industry. We identified the higher cost of bottled water to the consumer, the negative impacts it has on the environment, and the drain on natural resources. You might feel that bottled water tastes better than tap water, and in many cases, depending on where you live, you might be right. This, however, does not mean that you have to necessarily buy bottled water. There are countless water filters available that offer the convenience of tap water, a crisp, clean taste, and are still cheaper to you than bottled water. By utilizing such a filter, you're getting clean, great tasting water, you're saving the environment, and you're also assisting in alleviating the waste of limited natural resources created by the bottled water industry. Thanks for listening.